time to duel. It's time to duel. It's time to go. Now's the time.
Hey YouTube, Matt here, bringing you my Constellar deck profile from last Saturday. I know it's probably going to be Thursday or Friday by the time this is up, but I've been a bit busy, so I'm getting it done anyway. Probably going to tag another video on right next to this, which will be my future build. Just because of YCS Toronto, there was a couple other things I wanted to try out, so I've been testing a bit out on DN, and I kind of prefer some of the things in that build. Okay, anyway, what I ran on Saturday, as I said, was Constellars. I only went 2-2, which was a bit disappointing. Okay, going on to the deck build, we've got, obviously, the 3 cows. These are obviously your main card for the deck, pump stuff up to 5. A lot of people will obviously wait for sometimes when you put this up to 5 and then you've got the Pollux or something else on 4. But that does hurt, but then sometimes you've got a 1-8 and then a 1-7 beat stick on the field. It's not all that bad, and as long as, because I'm running quite trap heavy in this build, I can protect it to go off next turn, so it's not too much of an issue. And a lot of times if I see 2 or 3 back row, I'll just go into the Omega instead. 3 Pollux are the main card of the deck. Obviously it gets into your Calce easily with that extra normal summon. And then you have 3 Sombre, which is the Karakion of the deck. Obviously it's all your recovery plays, and is one of the best top decks, if not the best top deck in the deck. Algidi. This is like Pollux but not as good, whereas Pollux puts condition on the field to get an extra normal summon. Algidi, you normal summon and then you special summon from the hand, so this getting Veiled does hurt. This is one of the things I've changed post looking at some of the Toronto builds. One of the Toronto builds is only running 1 Algidi, running the 2 Sheraton, just so you can get to your Calces, your Pollux and your Sombres quicker. Before, I really did dislike Sheraton, but because there's now, obviously, you've got Heavy Storm is gone, so people are running a lot of back row to protect things, and I've also got my 3 Lance. Just having that Sheraton and being able to survive that turn effectively without dying to Storm or something can mean you can just go off next turn. Then we've got the one-offs and other cards that are not Constellars. We've got 2 Effect Veiler in the main deck. These I don't think went out at all, were just really useful. The 1 Bear for the Tankies, yes, Tanky's gone to 2, but still having that 1 Bear can be useful, and also Bear is also a really easy card just to side out because it's not vital. Honest, you run lights, it does stuff. T-King, I've still got it mained. I used to have it mained at 2, obviously when it was semi-limited, but now it's limited. I'm not sure whether I'm actually going to keep it in the main deck. I believe I've taken it out in my post-Toronto build, but I honestly can't remember because it was a fair few days since I put that together. Okay, and on to the spells and traps. The one-offs first. I was testing out Mind Control because obviously a lot of the main decks at the moment are revolving around 4s, and there's just so many of them about. I think this is a card that I may side or get rid of now because it wasn't amazing for me, but when it did go off, it was really useful. The 1 Dark Hole, the 1 Rotor to search that Pollux. You always want to get to your Pollux and Calces as quick as possible. And the 1 Book of Moon. Book of Moon is a card that I really used to hate for some deranged reason, but now I'm really loving it. Then we have the 3 MST. This is vital, this format. Without heavy, you have to run 3 MST, and that's it, in my opinion. Then we've got the newly unlimited Pot of Duality. Not sure I'm going to keep this at 3 in my post-Toronto build. It is at 2, because you do a lot of normal summoning, so it can be fine, but I believe the spaces could be put to better use. The 2 Tenki, obviously you want to get your Calces as quickly as possible again, boost it up to 1-9, which is really useful. Then of course you've got your Bear to search if you need just a little bit of spot destruction. 3 Lance, I'm really liking 3 Lance at the moment. The Toronto build I was looking at was only running 2. I can understand that, but our locals is very back row heavy even before Storm was hit, so running 3 Lance is almost needed. Then onto the trap lineup. Firstly, the one-offs. I was testing... Oh, I'll move these out of the way first. I was testing the single XYZ Reborn, never got this off today, not today, on Saturday at all. It was either just got rid of while it was not live and I was setting it as a bluff, or I simply just sided it out because it was a very common side out game too. Solemn Warning, it puts in work, it's still a very good card. Kinda hoping it goes back to 2 and just leave out Solemn Judgment. I know Solemn Judgment has got the huge cost to it, but because it can do sort of more things than Warning, it can be a lot better. And we've got 1 Compulsory. I bounce a lot anyway, why not have some more? The single Bottomless, it's still a very good card even at 1. Then the 1 TT. One play I love doing with this is if you've got an Omega out, Torrential Tribute becomes Regeki, which is amazing. Then I was testing out the 2 Vanity's Emptiness. I took them from the side, which they were the last time I played the deck, and put them in the main. I didn't really see them a lot, unfortunately. If I'd seen these against Mermails or Dragon Plants, that would have been really useful, but I just didn't see them. So they're going to stay in the main, because I believe this is a good choice to keep them in the main. But I just need to do further testing with it at locals and on DN. And then finally, we've got the 2 Mirror Force to punish the noobs. Extra deck, pretty standard, not really much different here from any other Constellar build I've seen or my previous Constellar profile. We've got the 1 Cowboy, never summoned this at all. Dweller, I did summon against, I believe it was Dragoonities, but it got booked, so it wasn't useful at all. Maystroke, I don't believe I summoned it. Paladynamo, didn't have a need for it, so never summoned it. Omega, running at 2. I normally do only summon this once, but I still like having it at 2, but in my post-Toronto build I have cut it down to 1 to put some other stuff in the extra deck. Precept, did make this a couple of times. A lot of the times for me, you're going to be choosing between the Precept or the Paladynamo, and I'd say 90% of the time I go for the Precept, but I still like having the Paladynamo just for the fact that you can get something down to 0 attack, because there will be the occasions when 3-4 isn't enough. We've then got the Utopia. I believe I summoned this once just to stall out. I believe it was against Lucas. Then we've got the 2 Pallades. Used to run this at 3. It's not needed anymore really because I'm running other 5s with it. It's still the best card of the deck, and every time I have got a Pallades and an Omega out, I've won. I've never lost with that setup because it's just so deadly. Then we've got the Volcasaurus. This is just to deal massive damage. And then you overlay the Gaia Charger, and you can get like 5k damage in a turn, which means it's pretty deadly. Then some more 5s. We've got the 1 Tyrus, which put in a lot of work for me, just getting rid of other problem cards, or if there's a lot of back row and I don't want to go into an Omega for some reason because there's not enough attack on it, because that extra 200 attack can be a lot. Then we've got the 1 M7. I'm fine with this going to 1. I used to run it at 2, but I cut it down in the deck to 1 anyway, because you don't really need it, especially when I'm only running 2 Pallades. It's still useful because a lot of the time I have gone through the 2 materials on Pallades and been able to get that 1 more. It's very useful. Then finally we've got the 1 Adrius. This used to be in purely for an Eve target, but now that's gone down to 1. It's not as relevant. And if I had one, I would probably switch this for a Zenmayo just to get rid of some more back row. Finally, the side deck, used this a lot on Saturday. There was a couple of things I would change about it. First, 2 things were the Maxis. These went in a hell of a lot, but I still probably will keep them sided because space in the Constellar deck can be quite tight. Yes, it gets you the draw, but if you're going against a deck which doesn't special summon a lot, it's not really worth it. I might consider switching them for the Veilers, but I'm not sure on that at the moment. 2 Dust Tornado, just for some more spell and trap hate. We've got Miles, who is playing a version of 4-axis, so that's why they were mainly there, but it's also just for extra spell and trap hate. Personally, I don't like Malevolent Catastrophe. It's not a problem. I think it's a good card. I would just prefer to have the single spot destruction of Dust Tornadoes instead. Mind Crushes, used these a couple of times. I don't think it ever went off because it just got rid of by MST, and I didn't 100% know what's in their hand, so I would rather not guess, because you don't necessarily keep that much hand advantage with Stellars, because obviously you've got your double normal summoning, so you're taking up 2 cards from your hand, which you can thin out your hand quite quickly. 2 Fiendish Chain. These were what I switched out for the Vanity's Emptiness, and I just put these straight into the side. The side was put together quite quickly. These were never sided in at all. I probably will take these out from the side. No, I will 100% take these out from the side, because I just didn't need to put them in, really. 2 Mind Drain. These put in work against the Dragons. I believe that was the only matchup I sided them in against. Along with the Soul Drain, same thing. Then we had the 3 Gozen. I'm probably at least going to cut this down to 2, if not take it out, mainly because the decks that are locals are quite attribute orientated, so it's not the best of sides, but for those rogue random decks and for things like Dragon Plants, yes, it's very good. Then, because I had a space left, I cheated, I did Prohibition. I will just quickly look over my notes, so there might be a cut here. Okay, sorry if there's a bad cut here. I decided to redo my bit on my matchups because I was stuttering a bit, because obviously camera and fear. Okay, round 1 was against Mermail, against Charlie. He eventually went on to win the tournament. In this matchup, round 1, I believe he went first. He just opened up quite well, and he got a lot to the field, and obviously Stellar is mainly a control deck with some aggro, so if someone puts a lot on the field, you just can't deal with it. Game 2 went kind of the same. I believe he opened with like 2 marksmen, so he ended up getting 3 spot destruction on my field. I believe that meant he destroyed my Kaus and 2 of my sets. Also didn't draw into my side to game 2. It went quite quickly. I believe it was over in 4 or 5 turns, just because he got so much out on me and I couldn't really protect myself against it. He also, can't remember if it was game 1 or 2, he went Moon Glacier on me. There was only 2 in my hand. The 2 in my hand was 2 Sombre, which were active, which made me really, really sad, because obviously I could have perhaps mounted a comeback on that. Round 2 was against Dan, playing Dragon Plants. It was the first time he played it at the locals. A couple of us helped him with some cards just to get into a playable state. It wasn't the full version of the deck. It still did really well. He didn't have any of the rank 7s at all, but I think he still made it into top 4, and that was just with synchroing and just having big beat sticks like Blaster, so that just proves really how powerful the deck is. Game 1 was sort of just standard grind. Obviously, in the long run, Dragons are probably going to win that, just because they effectively have the second hand with their graveyard. Game 2, I sided in about 6 or 7 cards, a lot of hate for it. I went first. I believe I set 5, literally set 5, and I drew my single Soul Drain that was in the side and a Mind Drain. So during his standby phase, I went straight up on the Mind Drain. I saved the Soul Drain just for a better activation point, so I just grinded out. He couldn't really do anything. I drew into monsters and just controlled totally the field. Game 3, I don't think either of us drew that well, so in the long run, eventually the Dragon Plants won that. It's also a deck that I'm looking to build, because I'm an old plant player myself, playing junk double plants, so it looks really fun decks. I've got most of it together, so I look forward to seeing a deck profile and hopefully a tournament report for that soon. Round 3 was Black Wings against, I believe it was Alan, Dan's friend. I helped him out with a couple of cards and just building his deck a bit, and gave him a very rubbish side deck fairly, just from some of the cards he had on him. To be fair, he didn't really get much of a chance against me. What happened was, every single game, well, it was only 2 games, both games I ended up being able to go play these very quick and just control and normal summon, and because Black Wings rely on that normal summon to get off Icaruses if they've got them. I know they could obviously chain Icarus and things like that, but they require that normal summon so they can get off the special summons of the Gale, of the Borers and things like that. Because I was controlling it so much and just had back row as well, he just couldn't do anything, so that was a walkover. unfortunately. Round 4 was against Lucas. Game 1, I just out-controlled him. He didn't draw that well. I believe that was the one game where emptiness came into play. I got that turn 1 or 2, and against Dragoonists there's not a lot they can do about that. And then obviously I had the Veilers in hand, which probably came into play as well. Game 2, I would have sided in the Maxis. Game 2 was a really close, tight game. It just came down to the fact that I needed to draw an extra monster to go with my Council Pollux that I had in hand, and I just lost because I'd grinded through all of his ducks and phalanx, so he didn't really have anything. But because he could continuously revive the Tempest, because he had plenty of winds and other dragons in grave, that eventually won him that game. Game 3, on the last turn, because we had gone into time, Lucas had a Prohibition out. Well, he didn't have... Well, yeah, he did. He played a Prohibition, called it Mirror Force, which I did have set. So then what ended up happening was he attacked with the ducks. I chained on the attack declaration. I chained a Mirror Force and then chained the MST, which ended up winning me the game. So this section will probably come before or after. I haven't decided yet, but